simple way to change your mind. You think there is such a thing? Have you ever tried to change somebody else's mind? I think we've all done that. What do you think is easier, changing somebody else's mind or changing yours? Changing yours? Do what?
If there's money.
If there's money? You can change somebody's mind if you bribe them, I mean? Yeah, that's true. So, I don't have a lot of experience in that, but I have some. Sometimes the bribe is ice cream, or sometimes the bribe is whatever, but well, changing the mind is the whole name of this game, really, this whole spiritual thing. The near-death experience, people will leave here and they go off wherever they go, and their mind is changed, but it's such a drastic, profound experience, and we don't have too many of those that come into our life, you know, that invade us at that level. And so there's a lot of times we know that we are in a negative state, and we know it would be better off if we weren't in that negative state, but we might be getting enough out of it to where we'll stay in it for a while. I've been doing some recording, and I know that most of you probably don't know the process involved in that, but I have my own studio at home, and I will go into it and work on a song, not just all in one sitting, but sometimes for several hours and sometimes for a couple of minutes, or just whenever I can work it in. So I had several days invested in this song, and I did a procedure. The computer started doing this circle thing and crashed. And when it came back on, the song was gone. So all the hours of work that I had in it were gone. And so it always happens when I come up with a subject to talk about that I am forced to have to practice it, because I was not thinking real positively when that happened. I had some real bad thoughts about Bill Gates and the thing he started with the computer or the desktops and all that. No, I didn't think that far back, but the technology that we have in the recording industry, in the recording realm, is just phenomenal compared to what it used to be with the tape and all the stuff that we used to do. A lot less expensive and all that, but then you have computer glitches, you have crashes. And I have managed to save the song, but I have to take each track. There's 32 tracks in the song. I have to take each one and duplicate it and put it into a new file. And then you do that, and they're not quite the same. Like if a piano's playing, it'll miss a couple of notes or some weird thing. So you got to check everything very carefully. And considering all the hours I put into it, I don't want to redo it, but so I don't have a choice. So that's where I had to change my thinking. This is a new day. You've got a new situation here, so let's approach it as if it is just that. You know, your life has not been damaged, and I'm talking about a very superficial problem here. Not many people have this kind of problem. But if you've ever worked on a document of some kind for quite a while and something happens where you lose that. We had our house hit by lightning one time, and every computer inside was black. So everything was lost, and there was no hope of retrieving anything. So everything that was on that machine was lost. So we have things like that happen, and not just computers, but other things. When Troy told me about his mother-in-law, you know, that brought up a lot of the feelings I had with our son passing last January. And there's a lot of calls from very severe ways to very mild ways, but those mild ways can actually ruin your day pretty much if you let it. And so the question of changing your mind, how do we do that? Is there a simple way to do it? And there really is a simple way to do it if we will do it. It's, and I'm not guilting anyone because I'm talking to myself as much as anybody. I live on this planet just like you do, and I have all the same kinds of issues, although maybe you're not recording songs and losing them, but you're doing other things, and you understand what it is to suddenly be put into a state of mind that you don't really want to be in. Is there a way to come out of that? And what I have learned is you have to give yourself room to go that direction for a while if you need to or feel you want to. We never want to, but we don't usually think we have a choice. You know, you lose something of value to you, naturally you think, well, I'm not supposed to feel as good. You know, you're not going to jump up and down and say, boy, isn't it wonderful that I lost this thing. We don't do that. So we back up and we regroup. We try to come up with a way to approach that problem or that situation in a way that's helpful to us. And our spiritual life is, our spiritual studies hopefully will help us do that. But Donald Altman, he's a former Buddhist monk and also a mindfulness expert, I've been talking about that more lately. He says, if you truly want to change your life, you must first be willing to change your mind. And that's a very simple thought, and we're all familiar with it, even though we may have never heard those exact words. Change your life, change your mind. You know, those things go hand in hand with the unity philosophy. A lot of people look at unity as a positive thinking movement, and I've always kind of cautioned against seeing it that way, because it's not all about thinking. But it is about thinking. That's a big part of it. It's about seeing what we're doing with our emotions and with our thoughts, with the whole direction of our faith, the force of our imagination, all of our faculties. And thinking is kind of the barometer. It's the thermostat that's up there where we can see it. We know what we're thinking. We know what we're feeling. And so that tells us we're either on mark or we're not. We're either in the slot or we're not. But if you truly want to change your life, you must first be willing to change your mind. So in any kind of a situation, that would be the first question we'd ask ourselves. If I'm going off on a tangent that I don't particularly like, to stop looking at all the facts that are going on and the reason that I should be feeling or thinking this way, and say, do I really want to change my life in this situation? And what does that mean? Does it mean that we'll make the problem go away? And it doesn't. It never means that. It may go away in some cases, but what we want to do is have the problem there and be able to relate to it at a different level. That's the real issue, because there's always going to be things coming up in our life, always going to be challenges that we're not going to quite know how to handle. And so it's just the ongoing watching what's happening in our thoughts and our emotions. While most of us respond positively to such a statement, we also know that changing our mind is in an impactful way is easier said than done. And yet Moses, in an absolute moment of crisis, offered his people a formula that works every time. And that's Moses there. We got a photograph of him. So we all know the story of the Red Sea. And the Israelites came out of Egypt after being in bondage for all those years, making mud bricks and doing what they had to do to get by, and Pharaoh let them out and then changed his mind and decided to come after them. And so they were between the Red Sea and the Egyptians, and it looked like a pretty bad situation. It was a bad situation. But what Charlton Heston told them to do was to stand firm, lift up your eyes, and see the salvation of the Lord. I've used this formula several times. It's, I think, repeated about 3 times, 3 different stories in the Old Testament. So it must have been a very common thing, and there's a reason that it's a common thing, is because it works, because it's a good thing to remember. To stand firm, lift up your eyes, and see the salvation of the Lord. And so we're going to explore today what this means and what it means in a practical way. If you've got something going on in your life right now, What's it mean to stand firm? You say, well, I'm not going anyplace. Well, maybe you're not going anyplace, but where is your mind? Where are your thoughts? Where's your emotions? That's where we're going to stand firm. So if you're in a moment of crisis or uncertainty, the first step is to stand firm. What does this mean? You are to make the decision to get off the mental and emotional roller coaster and bring your full attention to your present mind action. If you're going to change your life, the only time you can do this is right now. Stand firm in this understanding. I used to think that I would someday reach a point where I never had the mental and emotional reactions because I'd be so spiritually enlightened that I wouldn't have the negative mental and emotional reactions that I have. But if I use a person like Jesus as my model, then I have to look at the times when he also had reactions. He got angry and he did different things. So I'm not going to use him as that model. I'm going to ask myself instead, do I like where I'm at right now? Do I like having this experience? I didn't like the first couple of hours of the loss of my computer work, my music work. Didn't like myself too well, the way I was thinking, just the thought that this is gone, I've lost something. Well, that's I guess a normal knee-jerk reaction kind of thing. And we'll all have those. And I think as long as we have a body, we will have those kinds of reactions. As long as we're on this plane, there's always going to be some reason to react in a negative way. And we're not going to know how to say when something like that happens, oh, it's all in divine order. It's all going to be just fine. Just try to smile your way through it. It's fine to let yourself go down for a time and then come back up. And that's the important thing: is do you remember what you remember? Are you ready to practice what you know already? And that's what we want to do. So anytime you have a moment of uncertainty, the first step is to stand firm, and that is to remember that this thing, this situation, is not what is going to determine how I think and how I feel. And that's what's interesting is you will get through whatever you're in, whatever's confronting you. The question is, how will you do it? Will you be happy with yourself for the way you handle it? I can react negatively to something because I can stand up here then and tell you I'm a human being, and I get value out of letting you know that because I understand what everybody's going through. We're all going through the same kind of thing. And there may be some of you that handle things better than I do, and I may handle some things better than you do. I think with the passing of our son, from all the reaction I got from people, I think we did pretty good with that. And we're not in any contest, but I think all of my studies of near death and all of the experiences I've talked to with people or people have shared with me and funerals I've conducted and all that kind of thing, that I know without a doubt that this is not us. This is not all there is to us. That life without this thing is going to be a heck of a lot easier and a heck of a lot better, especially if it's in real bad shape. And so, yes, we react negatively. We miss our loved ones, but we also know that they are okay, that they're in a better place, that they're in a good place. It's not that this place is bad. It's just that they're not here anymore. And that's how we relate to them, is through the body. But any kind of situation that we're involved in that takes us down, and it can be something that severe, it can be something a lot less, that's a degradation of our quality of life. And again, I am no expert in keeping my attitude positive all the time, but I understand the value of it, and I always come back to it, because how long can you walk through the valley of the shadow of death? It's just not a very pleasant thing to do. And so we always ask when we're there, is there a way out of this? And the first step is to stand firm. Do I really believe this stuff? Do I really believe that there is greater good unfolding through this situation right now? Do I really think that? I was reading about one man, I can't remember the guy's name, he's a historian, but he had written about a 5-volume set on the world history, and something happened where that all of his work was destroyed. And this was before computers, so he couldn't blame computers. I think it was in a fire or something, his manuscript was destroyed. But handwritten 5 volumes of anything, that's a lot of work. And what he said after he recovered from his sense of loss is, I think I can do it better. I think I can write it better. And that's kind of what I said to myself. I think I can do this better. There were some problems I was working on. I'll start again and start without those problems. So I think I can do it better. And so that's a standing firm. Something better is going to come out of this situation. There's something better that I'm not seeing right now. To stand firm in that idea. Now, can you imagine if you're an Israelite and you've got Egyptians coming from behind and a Red Sea in front of you? It'd be kind of hard to think positive at that moment. So the value of a story like that is we're rarely in situations like that. And you've got this whole nation of people, according to the story, and Moses saying, it's not as bad as it looks. It looks pretty bad, but it's not as bad as it looks. And there's something we can do to get through this. And the first thing is very simple. Remember who you are. Remember who you are. We're headed to the land that was promised to us by the Lord. And again, this is all part of the story. But he's saying, stand firm in who you are, in remembering who you are. And that's really the first step. What we come back to is, am I this person that's angry or that is sad or that is cowering beneath this appearance? Is this really who I am? And we say, no, I'm not that, because I've been something other times. I've been much better than this. And so we stand firm in that attitude. To lift up your eyes is not a command to look up to the sky. It's a command to stop looking at the problem and turn your attention elsewhere. Where do you turn your attention? So you all understand that aspect of it. We're not talking about the physical eye when Moses says, lift up your eyes, or Charlton Heston, whoever said it, said to lift up your eyes. We're talking about taking our attention off of the problem. And that's, in my very shallow example of experience, I got to the point where I was able to say, this can be done better. Something better can come out of this. So this is true in every situation. Not just the simple things that happen, or not just the things that we're invested in some way and they don't pan out. It's true at all levels. We're all here for a reason. We're all here because I believe we have chosen to be here. And so we're not going to let things like the little things of life stand in our way. We're going to open ourselves to something different, and we lift up our eyes. We take our attention off the problem. And we say something better, something greater is unfolding through this situation now. We're starting to look at something else. See the salvation of the Lord. See your present concern resolved. You are on the other side of the Red Sea with your Egyptian hoard no longer in pursuit. Get the distinct feeling that your problem is resolved. And of course we see Charlton bringing the sea down on all the Egyptians. And of course the Old Testament's full of things like this where somebody's dying. There's always somebody getting killed. And it's a pretty violent set of documents. But if we look past that and understand those Egyptians are our own thinking, it's the way we're reacting to something. It's the belief that we cannot escape or we cannot have the freedom that's been promised. We have all been given the promise of a promised land. And that is that feeling in us that we know life can be better, that there's more to it than we are experiencing now. And especially if we're in a situation where we're between a rock and a hard place, we feel that way. That there is a greater good now unfolding, and I will survive this, and I will come out on top of it. I'll come out better. Some way it'll work out better, which is exactly what happened. But you also remember that the Israelites did not achieve freedom just through that, getting through the Red Sea and getting the Egyptians behind them. They wandered through the wilderness for 40 years. And so it wasn't like it's a sudden thing, it's a constant thing. Once you solve one problem, there's going to be another. That's one of the values of this story is, okay, we get through this, don't put your whole life on it because there's going to be more, there's going to be other things. Doesn't mean that life is always going to be hard, but it means that things will happen. Let's learn how to deal with them in a spiritual fashion, to stand firm in our understanding of the bigger picture, to lift up our eyes, stop looking at that problem over and over and saying, this is a problem and I'm going to suffer, or I'm suffering because of it, and I have no choice. So we see the salvation of the Lord. A technique like this is a little like an exercise machine. I have an elliptical machine, and I have to confess that I look at it more often than I actually get on it. I always feel better when I use it. Unfortunately, just looking at it does nothing for the cardiovascular system. The same is true with any spiritual technique. Reading about it is like setting the exercise machine in your room. So I've got a couple of things. I've got this elliptical, and I've got a Bowflex, which I use pretty much all the time. But they're both good, and the elliptical is boring as all get out. And so it's hard to commit to even 10 minutes on that thing. But I do. When I do it. And I always feel better. But these techniques, what I'm talking to you about right now, I've talked to you about before, several times before, and I will forget it. Or it'll be like this nice thing that I remember giving that lesson. Well, why don't you practice it right now? Why don't you get on that elliptical and start running? And we just sometimes have to remind ourselves of that, how much better we feel when we actually do it. So how will it happen? To see the salvation of the Lord is this getting the feeling that something better is happening, something better is unfolding. That's to see the salvation. You don't have to know how that's going to work. You don't have to know what it is. But you make a firm decision to confront your situation, pull your attention from the worst case scenario, and turn it to the resolution of your issue. If you do not need to, or you do not need to know how things will work out, but just commit yourself to the feeling that they are. And I have for years found that to be a very difficult thing to do, to look at a situation and say, I don't know how it's going to work out, but I feel good about the fact that I know it is. It's taken quite a while to be able to get to that point where I start entertaining, even while the thing is happening, and it doesn't look so good, that I'm actually able to change my mind at that moment and to say, I don't know how this is going to work out. I don't have the answer in front of me, but I know it is. And that's standing firm in our understanding. That's actually getting on the elliptical and start walking, start doing the thing. It's just take any situation you're involved in right now. Doesn't matter how trivial it is or whatever, anything that is pulling you down in any degree. And just to look at that and say, I don't know how this is going to work out, I just know it is. And you're doing this simple change of mind. You're standing firm in your faith, in your understanding. You're lifting up your eyes. There's the problem. I'm not looking at it. I'm not pretending like it's not there. but I'm not looking at it as if it's insurmountable. And to see the salvation of the Lord, this thing's going to work out. I don't know how, but it is. And it's going to work out in a way that's better than now. And I can actually feel good about that way of thinking. It's actually setting me free in this moment, the only moment I have in my life, to do anything about my life. Don't you want to get your mind right once and for all, so you get it right and you'll never have another negative thought in your whole life? If you think that's going to happen, good luck, because I don't think it will. As I said, I think that's how I used to think. I would get to the point where that would be spiritual enlightenment. But spiritual enlightenment is not attained once and for all. It's attained now, in the moment we are alive, in the moment we are questioning whether our life is good or not. Enlightenment occurs the moment you change your mind, or the moment you realize you can change your mind. That's spiritual enlightenment. I'm not a victim to this appearance. I have a choice. I can change my mind, and if I change my mind, I change my life. It's a very simple idea. And it's not as hard as we often think. We just don't think we have control over when something comes that looks bigger than us. There's nothing on this earth that's bigger than us. And that's difficult to understand sometimes, but it's true. We are much greater than anything that we confront in this world. There's things that are bigger than our bodies. There's things that are bigger than what we physically can do. But there's ways through it. There's ways around it. And we have a spirit that was not based on fear. It's not based on limitation. It's based on truth. We're not seeking to change our life from this day forward. We're seeking to change, only to change it within this now moment. This simple change of mind can make a profound change in the quality of your life. And we can prove that to ourselves this very moment. Thank you for watching this week's program. If you enjoyed this video, please share it with others. We want to reach as many people as we can, and we appreciate your help. We have many subjects in our video lineup, so feel free to take a look. If there's a topic you don't see and would like me to address, just put it in the comment section. I'd love to know what's on your mind. To subscribe to this channel, simply click our logo. Thanks again for your interest in Independent Unity, and have a wonderful week.